let's talk about A Fabled City of Brass by Anthony Huso, module code HU2. There are two books. You buy them separately via Lulu because that's how Lulu does stuff, but they do go together. You can imagine in a modern slipcase Kickstarter edition you might also have, because you can get a big version of the map file from Tony himself. You might imagine these two plus a little map as well. This is a very high level adventure. It is 12th level plus. The sample party, which is 5 or 6 characters, is 15th level for reference. So it's made technically for first edition Dungeons and Dragons, but easily adaptable for second, for basic indeed, and with a bit more effort for other editions. The background story of what this module is about is that the real City of Brass, the fabled City of Brass, is not a city of the Afriti, of the fire genies. It's actually a city of a race or species even they fear, the Gringlings, this great magical, well, psionic race in fact, who it was their capital city of their planar empire, and they managed to even basically enslave the Afriti. They're that powerful, but they are fallen. They fell in a war with the Gruul, another psionic race, but a kind of strange and disgusting race in lots of ways. And the City of Brass now is abandoned. It is the Gringling are largely extinct, not wholly, but largely extinct. And another module that Tony's done that deals with the Gringling is Gelwine Fall, which is a Lich's extraplanar resting place. So they're gone, and the reason they're gone, and this, the quick summary, is that basically there was first a falling out between the Caliph of the Painted Dawn, Iblis Occam, and his wife, Alyssa Amuyan, she of the Nightingale, the Jewel Nightingale, which is Tony details a couple of artifacts in these books, which are from the first edition DMG, and they fell out that essentially she had an affair with the general of his army, and that led to a kind of disastrous falling out amongst them, and a bit of a civil war and executions of those two, of the adulterous lovers. But then as that was concluding, the Gruul, the great enemy of the Gringlings who had been fighting them for so long, finally concluded they paid off the Gringling debt to elemental princes, because the Gringlings had got a big debt to the elemental princes in their war. They paid it off by sacrificing themselves, mass suicides. So they bought out the debt, and the elemental princes subverted the defense systems of the City of Brass, so that what seemed simply to be a demon, Matuam, who is a demon, she just destroyed the Gringlings, wiped them out, or largely wiped them out, and that leads to the fall of the Empire and this strange cursed city with many, many dangers, many, many problems. The reason you're going to go there, usually curiosity. Players like exploring. If you, like me, use exploration XP, you might well be able to use that as a big hammer. But just loot, treasure, artifacts, mysteries. You can imagine seeding this in lots of ways, and there are ways that if you are building up to this in a campaign, there is a Marid, for instance, so you could who's trapped there, so you could have the Padishah of all Marids say, oh, please go and rescue this guy. You can imagine lots of different routes in both story, inverted commas, and more loot based and gold for XP based exploration. There are not many high level modules for AD&D, at least for OSR kind of D&D, and I would define high level in terms of the economy of the game as 12th level up. 12th level is when you start getting 6th level spells. 14th level you get 7th level spells, so think about Raise Dead there, of course. I'd say Resurrection, sorry. I'd say that 6th, 7th level spells are really when you start getting into the big stuff. 7th you get your first power word for magic users. It's also a point where you are likely in a campaign to have crossed over the threshold of resources, in terms of not just you have so much money, you've had a stronghold perhaps for a while, but also and you need so much XP to continue leveling up. but also your consumables are enormous. You're probably making stuff or have people making stuff for you, scrolls and potions. You've got artifacts, perhaps the first artifacts have turned up, and combined with the spells for the magic users and the clerics, you have so much of an arsenal as a player character party that there's not much that can threaten you. And so many high-level modules aren't very good because of that. By that I mean they use particular simple tricks. It's hard to challenge high-level parties. Basically, you end up, well, for instance, what do you do? You change the rules so that players just can't do lots of stuff, and to some degree that can be acceptable. But imagine you just change everything. So essentially, you're leveling the players down, apart from for a few exceptions. That's cheating, but it is a common design strategy. Again, you might have kind of particular kinds of, I guess, and I mean, again, sometimes things can be used for good, but particular kinds of lethal, unpredictable, simply vicious traps and tricks. And on the good side of that, you have Tomb of Horrors, I would say, but on the bad side, you have plenty of other similar things. So you have a few techniques for containing players, which I think basically aren't very good. They don't really mean the players get to enjoy being high level. There are some very good high level adventures out there. So Gary wrote Tomb of Horrors, and The Shrine of the Kuato and Vaulted and Drow both go up to, I think, 14th level, and I think they both end in a place where it's useful to be high level, genuinely high level. Night Below ends in Great Shabaoth, around that level range, level 13, 14, 15. Cordell's Return to the Tomb of Horrors as well, naturally. The City of Moyle is an incredible high level environment. And there are middling entries, Isle of the Ape, which is level 18 to 20, for instance, by Gary Gygax. But there aren't many more. I'm sure you could name some more high level modules you like, put them in the comments. But this is, I think, Fabled City of Brass. And Tony also has another high-level module, Dream House of the Nether Prince. But this, Fabled City of Brass, is, I think, the best high-level module I have read. I think it's beautiful, it's interesting, it's incredibly detailed and wide-ranging. It has so much to offer, different kinds of challenges for different players, different incentives for different players, but also it does really interesting things about how it is high level. So basically, it doesn't gimp players. By that I mean it doesn't simply have flat rules that mean players can't do lots of things. It is on the plane of fire, so there are planar limitations, but basically it is not attempting to stop players doing stuff. Players get to do whatever they like. There is a particular set, and you find this in Appendix E, unhelpfully, perhaps, but Appendix E, City of Brass Rules and Systems, there are a set of problems facing the players, with a very small number of kind of spell controls and spell limitations based on the environment. But there are a number of problems that player character parties are going to have to deal with. One, time dilation. Going to the City of Brass costs you 5 years. It is something which, much like in Nightwolf Inn, if you go and decide to get the mandolin and the kiss from, going via the that lady who teaches magical mandolin, and then the elemental prince of air, like that takes you 7 years or whatever. So it's the same thing. You are paying a big cost for a big reward, and in that sense, maybe there's an argument that this therefore doesn't suit stable play. Of course, maybe it does suit stable play, because your players will just switch to other characters for many years of action, and you can always come up with other time lapse effects. But yeah, so 1, there's a 5-year cost. 2, the Blissful Haze. This is actually maybe the biggest one, which is that essentially every 6 hours, barring every non-native being, including mounts, familiars, henchmen, and so on, automatically use 1 hit dice and then save versus spells or fall asleep, and then they cannot be woken. If you fall asleep from regular rest, you can't be woken either. You have to be hauled out of the city beyond 1 mile distance where they may be woken normally. And then you can recover things, but remember, the place you're resting is going to be on the plane of fire, so it's not like it's going to be particularly gentle, or you're going to have to go somewhere else, and of course that journey costs you 5 years. And there's not really any way to avoid it. There are 2 ways within the city, or one way and then arguably another way that players can limit or reduce that effect. Players may come up with other effects, but it is intended as a timer, essentially, and as a cost. There are a few, literally, anti-magic shell isn't affected, but just has special effects. Create water spells will only create dust or magma. Weather can't be controlled. The astral plane can't be reached. Commune and things like that don't work unless the deity is on the inner planes. Those are very minor limitations, and they are thematic rather than, they're not meant to be game saving. They're meant to be thematic and to make sense. Rangers of prime planar origin use their surprise advantage. Clerics of prime planar origin who worship elemental earth receive a temporary boost of 1 experience level while here, because, well, it's that the Fabled City of Brass kind of crosses over between earth and fire, basically. So yeah, you've got a few natural reductions of power there and costs, and you have the other things that Tony does, and I'll give some examples of these, but basically he makes it an interesting high-level module with a few often interlocking techniques. So there's other complex enemies who have essentially, and this is not a criticism, I think this does fit into AD&D. I think there is a war game and combat element to those games which is proper, but not everyone will feel that, but I think there is. But complex combat routines, you've got something which does a lot of different things. It's still much easier than running the same kind of combat in a later edition, including with much less powerful creatures, but the idea that you've got a creature that does 3 or 4 things, and that has particular protections. And as I say, I'll give some examples as we go, but I think that's just really interesting. That one way is that you make the combat weird and interesting. Also, and this is a Gary technique, a lot of enemies. You might laugh at the idea of like 10 skeletons, but what about 300 skeletons when there are limits, magical limits on how many you can turn due to the effect of the area you're in. Again, horrendous trap combos, things where if you do X, bad thing happens, but if you do Y, bad thing happens. Or rather, there are ways to get around it sometimes. Maybe there is a Z that means you get around it, but you've got to think your way through it, and often you're going to end up choosing to take a cost because the reward you perceive by taking the cost is higher than if you try to avoid it. And often, of course, those enemies and those traps will be bypassed. They'll be dealt with. The healing will come quickly. Yes, you've got an insane disintegration trap, but people have both. They've got save bonuses and they've got magical armor and protections, and also people around them have very high level. They've got a scroll of wish. The players have stuff, but constantly there is going to be a deterioration in ability between the Blissful Haze particularly and the sheer range of dangers where, yes, you'll deal with the first 10 things okay, but slowly your ability to deal with things will deteriorate. It can't even be solved, as you might hope with some other ones, by simply having large groups of followers because of things like the Blissful Haze, because of how lethal things are. You're bringing like level 8, level 9 henchmen, but they're just getting fried. So yeah, you get the picture. That is the mixture of techniques he uses. Some he learns from Gary, but including the crazy traps. That's a Tomb of Horrors thing, of course. But some he develops himself, I think, as well. So let's talk about the book itself. You can see here, this is the God Beetle. That is the cover of the main book. That is Tamara Muyan, I think, the last living Gringling in the city. So this is, I've reviewed Nightwolf in here before, and this is that is an amazing book. It might be my favourite book by him in many respects, and definitely has high-level campaign elements if we're going to talk about high-level adventures. But here, this is much better organised. I know that Tony put money into making this look good. It does look good. It has layout superiority. There is table of contents. The material is organised fairly logically. There's clear cross-referencing between material and consistent. Look here, look here, look here. No matter how repetitive it is, and that is better than only mentioning on the first reference to something. On the other hand, there's potentially still, and I think this is true with Nightwolf Inn too, but there's a lot of white space. He doesn't fill pages as hard as Gary does, and sometimes I go back and forth. Sometimes I want more information, so not because I want efficient page count, but because then I can flick between rooms and stuff more easily. But nonetheless, I think you can see here clear bolding and indentation and backgrounding, in fact, for monsters. There's for Demophon, the Black Titan. Lots of things like that. The layout and formatting is very good. And the appendices is mostly a success in allowing a second page open rather than needing to bookmark. There are still some problems, and there is some improvement in this in some of the other modules too, but like, for instance, cross-referencing and the table of contents both lack numbering. There's no page numbering. I think that's probably because it was transferred and formatted after those references were put in and they were never improved. And I think that is a weakness, because basically when you've got sections which are 15-20 pages long, you want to reference somewhere. It is useful, and it means you also don't have to look. Even for the chapter title, you can just flick to the page either in person or physically or via PDF. It's also worth saying, and this, some people, because they don't really want background story to be a big thing in terms of taking up space, they want it to be revealed via play, wouldn't mind this. I think it is useful to sum up the story, inverted commas, at the start of a module, and that includes background if the background is something where you are going to have to explain bits to players. And this is on a seam between the kind of two types. In part, players don't necessarily need to know lots of stuff about the Iblis Occam and the fall of Zazura, the City of Brass. On the other hand, there are things where, including this relates to some like cross-referencing stuff, where you got a control word for this and a clue for this, where there are sometimes cross-references, sometimes not. And knowing the story in a kind of 2-paragraph format at the start of the main book, not hidden both in the appendices and in random entries in the main book, would allow you to be like, okay, so this is the basic story. This is what, for instance, if you did commune with a greater power on the prime material, that's what they'd tell you. And you don't have to extract that information. And so in that sense, that is one example of some of the problems I think that you might find with this. But they are relatively minor. I wouldn't say they are at all crippling. I don't think I found any cross-referencing particularly difficult to do as I flicked between books. The art and the aesthetics. The map is beautiful. It's mostly quite clear. The accompanying art is stunning and much of it original. The actual Lulu printed books are of passable quality. They look good. The actual pages look good, and the colour looks good. You can kind of see it's all pretty crisp, but the perfect binding isn't very good, and so pages crack and fall out. The writing. To give the quickest of summaries of this, I'm going to give more examples in a little bit. But yeah, generally the writing is really nice. So this is box text basically for players. At the centre of this reverberant court of white stone, 3 women banter softly, dipping their amphorae to gather water from an incandescent pool. The court is rich with blue-shadowed carvings and paradisical flowers, but pales in comparison to the burning beauty of these women. And there's a lot of that. It is a shady corner of the beautiful campus is draped in flowers and appointed with stone benches offering a spectacular view of the sea. Above you soars a tower of solid brass. That is a boring entry. It is still incredibly efficient in terms of 2 sentences that sound good. And there are plenty more, crazy, beautiful descriptions of things. Let's just find one of those. Yeah, these are all kind of good. This dreamlike suite is lit by 3 tall windows that frame the endless pink and blue horizon. A 4-poster bed stands majestically near the east window, and a palatial wardrobe is nearby. Ancient but well-preserved tapestries depict the city of Brass at its height, a much larger place than it now seems to be. The 30-foot dome ceiling contains a fresco of the city itself floating over trackless wastes, but part of the plaster has fallen away, revealing strange pink masonry. That is a trap. It's a rose pudding. The room smells of freshly cut roses, though there are none to be seen. That is a hint. There's a rose pudding. So, yeah, lots of good writing. The aesthetics are good. The writing is good. The maps, you can see some examples as I've gone through this. Let's just see, because I think this will be useful. Here is a player aid for timekeeping to do with, you can see city encounter checks and level loss and save versus spells for sleep. There is a potentially player facing map. That is a player map that I think Tony kind of expects you'll just give them, and I think that's good. You know, you might be like, well, how do they know this building's there? Doesn't matter. This gives them objectives to look at. Here is a DM map with keying. One building is not visible on the player map because it is the Queen's tomb or whatever after she's executed, and has been hidden from sight as she's gone, you know, damnata memoriae. So yes, this is a beautiful map. It is also perfectly usable. There are occasionally very small complaints about, essentially, for instance, this is a library. This is an interior space. The same with all of these towers and stuff on the grey, which is basically the Ray City battlements. And you know, you have to realise the convention to understand that that is internal. But I don't think once you've read the module you're going to have a problem with that. And again, the same. You might occasionally say, what's the difference between this tree and this tree? And of course, you need to keep reading that up. Oh, actually, this is one point about something that is missing from Appendices / a relevant place at the start, which is that there are lots of little purple, like there. I know that's very small, but purple squares which are Zeitgeist kiosks, which can verify if someone tells the truth. Then they're allowed to do kind of, they have a lot more access in the city, and they'll be attacked less, and they'll be warned more of bad things. Red flagged, i.e. people who lie, more bad things happen to them. Though there is one case over here where you want to be red flagged so you can get to a secret treasury, and unchronicled characters tend to have a medium result. So yeah, and that's an incredibly important system that affects lots of things, and you may well want a party that has both red and green flags. It's complicated. You really want them all to have green flags, except there are one or two places where red flags might help. Accidentally, i.e. you have to bear the consequences of bad things to get to something good. But yeah, that is not explained at the start. And yes, once you know the conventions, it's okay. I think the fact it is lacking a sort of easy explainer at the start doesn't help. There is a key. It is it's easier, I guess, in a PDF. The paper copy has an incredibly small key that is you have to really squint out, or maybe that's just my bad eyesight. I don't know, but it's very small on screen, of course, here. But yeah, it's good. It's very nice looking, and it's basically functional. So what I'm going to do, and there are 270 keyed locations, plus the 5 appendices, 4 of which I haven't talked about, plus encounter tables and things like that. So this is going to be a whistle-stop tour, because basically I've said, oh, doesn't it look nice? Isn't the writing nice? And these are the techniques that he uses. But I think both as a workshop, you know, oh, how does someone do something well, and how can we learn from that? But also in terms of trying to explain why this is good to run, and why it's a kind of exciting place. As I say, maybe the best high-level module. I will bring out examples from the main book and from the appendices, but I'm not going to be able to cover them in anything like the detail I do for some things. You know, 270 key locations this is essentially a mega dungeon. It is a time-limited mega dungeon that costs you 5 years to go to, but then maybe you want to go back. Maybe that's a cost you accept. I mean, of course, there is one way here where you destroy the entire prime material plane, so maybe you don't need to go back if you do that. We'll get to that. The universe flower. So basically there are 7 areas, roughly, 7 kind of zones. There is this very small outside zone A, so the Sea of Karkar, the walls and the gate. There are the gardens B, you can see through here. There is a merchant district C. There is a kind of largely domestic. It has some shops, it has some tombs and stuff, but domestic area here. There is the library and entertainment sector here. The library is in Ridal, and there's Temple Hill here, which is temples on the whole. Then there is all the grey is marked as this, but is all the raised towers of the Gringling, the army and royalty. Particularly there is the palace of the Caliph of the Painted Dawn, but you also have lots of towers for some of the princes and princesses, and particular bastions for the army, and the place for like the chief wizard. So we'll go on a whistle-stop tour. Perhaps let's maybe that's a bit better, just to point out things as we go. Zoom in slightly on the map. I think I'll stay on the map and read. So you've got to get in, and once you get in, you have 3 gates into other areas. Well, there's a few ways you can get in, and this is an obvious place to get in because the gates of gold are very slightly less protected vertically than other places. They're actually very hard to open. A Cyclopean gate, individual panes of stained glass fill the tympanum of an obsidian arch blazing forth in the shape of a peacock. The shining bird radiates light over mighty rose brass valves that hum loudly. You judge the gate 70 feet broad and twice again as high. The closer you approach, the louder the resonance. Vast panes of glass form windows into the valve's thickness, revealing incomprehensible artifice. Lights of orange and blue circulate within. At 20 paces, the hum is deafening and all the hair on your body stands erect. It has a single keyhole, which the key of the dawn, which is in G48 at the top of the map, opens, or artifacts of great power. You may well have one. And it 80% magic resistant, requires 2,000 damage to bring down. This is the reason that you want to approach a particular way. You come over land here, and then it is floating above a sea of basically burning oil. And so you once you finish crossing the wastes, you get here, and this is what you see. You can try to break it down, 2,000 damage if you like, but if touched, it kind of power word blinds you and also does you 20d6 lightning damage, save versus breath for half. All gear must save versus lightning, and you're thrown 30 feet. How are you going to get in? Well, you can fly over, and you can teleport and things like that. And the flying over, however, which is something you're allowed to do, bears the great risk of the fact that all these grey have the skyward perforations, which if you're not green flagged via having gone to a Geist kiosk, you're being fired at by energy bolts. And so you can get over, but there's an immediate cost that you're likely to get damaged. Well, you do get damaged. It's save versus breath for half. Again, you can teleport, you can do things like that, but all these things are costs. And of course, it may well be, and this is something that your players should be researching and finding out, it may well be that they've got an artifact, or they can get something which allows them to open the gates of gold. But that itself is an entire story beforehand, isn't it? They get in, and they have, assuming at this point they are not flying willy-nilly because of because of just how dangerous everything is. And there's no Geist kiosk here, so they can't immediately get themselves recognised. So they're going to walk around. Well, they can find out a very important clue for something else here in the tomb of Iblis Occam. They can go this way, and this one, BO4, the Archers of Fire. If you're red flagged or unchronicled, you take 2d6 damage for passing through them. Or again, the Archers of Ice. They're set far enough apart that if you weigh less than 90 pounds, you can slip between them for 1d4. Touching them takes 2d6. So they're made of gold, though, so if you can do something else, you could potentially cool them down and remove them. You can also, they can be switched off over here in the area. Well, I think in one of these towers, actually. So you can also go forward, the garden gates. And the garden gate, there is, essentially, if you try to get through, a Sphinx turns up if you are red flagged. Or green flagged. She gives you different riddles, and they have answers here, and they're good riddles. So basically you've got a different threat, which is either you have to answer the question, or you have to fight Azaran the Arthanan Sphinx, who is not insanely tough. She only has 68 HP, so she's tough but not crazy. AC -3, which is perhaps worse. 2 attacks, spells and poison spit. So yeah, not the craziest challenge, but again, are you going to start off by fighting something when you could answer a riddle? Well, no, generally not. So you can see immediately the way that the early decisions, you're under the effect of the Blissful Haze, you're going to lose levels. You can't really rest here. and your magic items are depowered via planar travel, and you immediately are taking costs getting in and then getting through these different walls and stuff, these different gates. So yeah, if you go into the garden is and one thing that Tony does, these are themed areas without having overwhelming themes, and often the biggest things in those areas, or some of the biggest things in those areas, is not themed. So over here in the Library and Entertainment District, the biggest thing is a red dragon, for instance. But here in the gardens, there are a couple of things, I guess, to bear in mind. One, you have a higher concentration of orange trees. That means things that you can get flora and fauna from. Well, flora, anyway. So here you can see the flora table. You roll twice, I think, for each turn of searching. And then you have these detailed charts of things that you can make. So, for instance, cinder spitting toikrums, throats of delicate bluish trumpets brighten until they release floating bubbles of incandescent nectar. Eating the fresh blossoms grants 25% magic resistance for 2d12 hours. On the other hand, they have no shelf life. Other things have longer shelf life, 6d12 days for golden dates, or can be processed. Ethereal stargazers can be processed for, well, 4 of them makes an ointment dose, and they last for 1 year when processed, compared to only 1 day when unprocessed. So there's an entire system there relating to these orange trees, and you can see there's obviously far more here than there are in the other areas. There are some in the other areas, but I think none in the entertainment area. Oh, we know a couple. A few in this one area, 1 or 2 in the other, so in the kind of temple and commercial areas, but mostly there. There's also lots of interesting monsters, some new and annoying and difficult things. The Golden Joe is a massive gorgon type thing, but then there is a stag unicorn and his harem. There is Anchor the Burning Peacock. Multahab is the unicorn, and yeah, those are good people. Those are, well, good people, good monsters. Do you want to mess with them? Well, they're worth lots of, well, XP, or some of them are. Multahab is worth 1,363, which is solid. Even at level 12, that's not inconsiderable. But they don't have massive amounts of resources attached to them, apart from the Burning Peacock. And also, why do you want to, are you horrible? Maybe you are, maybe you're evil. And that creates a decision, doesn't it? You know, do you want to try, are you here just to destroy and loot everything you can, or is there a genuine process of discovery and enjoyment? Anchor the Burning Peacock, if you kill it, it comes back immediately, which is kind of funny, and starts attacking you again. But if you kill Anchor the Burning Peacock, you can take away feathers and beak, and they are useful. Maybe more, this whole area is interesting. This Pool to Eternity has a Froghemoth and Tadhemoths in it. The Froghemoth, of course, is one of the top tier threats in Expedition to the Barrier Peaks in the spacecraft. The Tadhemoths are 5 HD, Thaco 15. They're basically the chumps, and they are part of that Gary strategy to offer you many enemies to fight, which he doesn't really use in Expedition comparatively, but he does elsewhere. But yeah, you've got a Froghemoth in there. But you can also search in there, and there is a wand of, in the muck at the bottom of the pool, and there is a Ring of Ginny Summoning with 3 charges, Wand of Defoliation, Winged Boots and a Skeleton, Rod of Lordly Might, 300 Electrum Anchors. There is a green dragon knocking around up there. There is the Pool of Cosmic Black here in the centre, which is connected to the elemental plane of water, so you can pass through to there. And that's where the Universe Flower is, which, let's see the description. See, I know we should limit the reading, but this is lovely, isn't it? Floating in the reservoir's centre is a perversely beautiful flower whose tremendous size and shape thrums the walls of reality. It seems to be a species of extravagant lotus, though its petals are difficult to see properly. The blossom's shape is hole-like, with stars and galaxies burning in the depths. From it, a purple-black fume trails on the wind. So, if you inhale the cosmic fume in the Universe Flower, you age 1d3 years, you raise your prime requisite. That's repeatable. You have to system shock check, though, or die, of course, with magical aging. If you strike it and fail a save versus petrifaction, you get taken to the interstellar void of the prime material, so you're dead basically. It's immune to most magic, but cold damage, or a wand defoliation that penetrates its MR, causes the boss blossom to begin closing, and if destroyed, wipes out the prime material. It then reopens and a new prime material is created. So immediately, I think the stakes here of the high level module, where you have basically a Phoenix Peacock who does massive explosions, keeps coming back, but you can get magical stuff from that is incredibly powerful. You can go and destroy the prime material. You immediately have this thing, and you can meet a high level unicorn and just befriend them. All these different kind of immediate wondrous experiences and high level possibilities. Yeah, it's hard to imagine a new group going in and getting how amazing that is, without having worked up the ranks. But nonetheless, you look at that and you think, yeah, this is what high level play should be about: destroying the prime material, befriending a high level unicorn. By the way, the peacock doesn't attack you unless you attack it, because it's good. Are you that evil that you're going to attack it? The Forbidden Bazaar is probably one of the less interesting of the areas. It's solid. It has a gang of Lamias. It has lots of, basically, you can go into any of the pavilions marked. You see these, again, this is one of those kind of maybe slightly unclear map annotations, these sort of tent-like apparitions. You can just find magic items, magic user furnishings, things like that. You've got a variety of guardians and things like that. You have, over here, this is the most interesting thing, the Treasury Halls, which lead into here. If you're green flagged, the rooms to this door are locked. If you're red flagged, they're not locked, because they want you to go into the false treasury. There are then lots of things that look valuable but are not valuable, and you'll take away and you'll be unhappy, and you will have lost 5 years of your life for taking away, what you thought was 5 magic Gringling energy bows, which rebound on the user, 5 backbiter spears, a suit of poison enchanted armour, 2 alabaster statues, which weigh £80 each, yellow gold ingots, which weigh £10 each, things like that. Enormously heavy, but virtually worthless in the final event. There is a secret door, though, which takes you, you can only find it if you use Detect Magic, Detect Invisibility, or Detect Illusion. And if you so do, you can see it there, you'll find your way into a small chamber which has a gold urn holding the dismembered bones of Arsatanu, which is the general of the Four Skies, traitor to his lord, and a golden cage containing Alyssa Amuan's Bejeweled Nightingale, which is one of the most powerful things and amazing things you can find in the entire City of Brass. So that's an interesting one, isn't it? A room you are dissuaded from going to if you're green flagged, but yeah, you can break your way in. The stuff there is worthless, and True Seeing, Detect Illusion, or the like are necessary to find out if it's if you can do anything. You've got devils next door who might attack you if you let yourself in. But if you successfully work out what's going on and look around and search properly, and it's not going to be elven search for secret doors, it's got to be magic, then you will find one of the most impressive things in it. And of course, the fact that these are part of the false treasure, aren't they? These are the head of the traitor and the gift he gave to the queen to seduce her. They've been put in the false treasury because they were false. We then, there is also the God Beetle here, and this is the God Beetle is neutral. Isn't going to attack you unless you attack it. But yeah, this is in the appendix because the monsters are in the appendix where they are original. Samin Dahab, the God Beetle, is you're going to attack Samin Dahab because Samin Dahab is worth 26,505 XP, and you may mistakenly believe that it is guarding the amphorae of scented oils, which are each worth 3,000 silver pieces. So yeah, you may well attack it for that reason, but either way, whatever reason, it doesn't attack you basically. It, however, does have a triple bash attack, which each do 3d10 and can pin targets. It does not miss onto hit, a roll of 1. It can bite you if you are pinned. It doesn't take any other action in the round, which is bite. Failure, if the bite hits, you say versus breath weapon. Failure means instant death. Success reduces your HP to 1. And 40% chance each round the Summon Dahab begins to open up her shell case. And once that is kind of completely opened, it begins to vibrate, and living things at the end of the round, living things within 30 of the beetle, must save versus spells or be disintegrated by the sonic attack. So you've got this multi-stage attack process, multiple kind of possibilities, shell opens or kicks or pins and bites. And yeah, that's a way to challenge a high-level party, especially because, I don't think I mentioned, you're talking about something which is naturally pretty tough anyway. I mean, we're talking about AC -4, MR 20%, THACO 1, special defenses requires magic weapons to hit. So you've got lots of things going on there. Now, it's not actually a terribly valuable kill compared to, say, Anchor the Burning Peacock, but it is well, I mean, it's valuable in terms of XP, but it is something where you can imagine the players thinking, let's just go for this. But maybe they'll regret that. At least with Anchor the Burning Peacock, they'll take away valuable stuff, which they could use for other things. We'll see, you'll see what your players do in that particular circumstance. But the options are there. As they investigate essentially an open environment, a 270 location open environment. The Dreaming Noblesse is this area up here. Let's pick out a few highlights. One, you begin to find, so Jan bin Jan who's somewhere down here. He is the married advisor to the Caliph, and you can free him. And he didn't know what was happening. He was defeated by Arsatanu and sealed in his bottle, and doesn't know about the fall of the City of Brass. But he will offer the PCs that freed him one wish before he departs, and he'll answer questions as well. You then have, and this is a quite a Gary location here, the Fishered House. You go in there, and there are a lot of valuable things but carried on a monster called the Soulless Lord of the Lava Children, which is the Fiend Folio monster. There are 15 Lava Children of HD4, 6 of HD5. There is 1 Lava Child Warlock with spells. There is 1 Lava Child Pontiff with spells. There's 1 Lava Child Prefect. So those are HD5 and HD6 respectively for the Warlock and Pontiff and 5. The Prefect is 6. And the Soulless Lord is HD7. None of those are individually insanely threatening to a party, albeit they have decent AC, and more particularly they're immune to fire and earth, they're immune to metal, vulnerable to water and air. So they have weaknesses and protections which the party has to work out. But, they're hopefully self-evident. It's a fire creature. But it's the sheer mass of them. You go in and you have this army of lava cyclones attacking you. But if you kill them, then you have the Lord is carrying 327,000 silver worth in gems. That's very much both. That's a Gary technique, and it's very, I guess, indicative of the way an environment is designed here. And I guess you've picked up a few different designs here, haven't you? Of the weird trap, the sort of neutral encounter like Anchor, or who's over here, or the God Beetle, or again the army of opponents you have to deal with. Yeah, you've got a wizard's tower, Umrafi's tower, which, if you're green flagged, you're fine, but if you're red flagged or unchronicled, you don't. There's 0 gravity and you're going to struggle getting around. This is another way. In fact, this whole thing, this is a Umrafi's tower, which is somewhere around here, is an excellent example of a trap environment, and it's chiefly a trap environment challenging high-level players. If you're red flagged or unchronicled, you become weightless. You must make a dex check on 3d6 on each round in which you attempt to move. Not that hard. But you will fail occasionally. Failure indicates physical contact with a wall. The wall's made of Bartstone, which cause the viewer to become psychically aware of the origins of the multiverse and find the endeavours of humanity, as well as their own lives, hysterically funny and pointless. Gaze attack, which if met, requires a save versus spells. Physical contact, the same, but with -4 penalty, and required each time it's touched or looked at. And if you fail, you You laugh uncontrollably, mixed with weeping, unceasing, and it causes death in 1d12 plus 12 hours. You move at 50% normal rate, suffer -4 penalty to all rolls, and cannot cast spells. Only Wish, Limited Wish, Holy Word, or Remove Curse can remove the condition and prevent death. But there are a couple of areas. There are 2 specific places which can also remove those conditions. But you can, if you can survive that, you do have an enormous number of scrolls available, an enormous number of potions. If you can deal with a Magyar guard, there are luxury goods worth 200,000 silver, albeit not necessarily efficient for weight. And then at the top level there is a very valuable chest which has a rod of smiting inside. So it's an incredibly valuable location, but with something which it is hard to see unless basically a high-level party should be thinking, look, we've got a cleric, he can run 1 remove curse, but we also need to have some scrolls of remove curse because it's such a powerful thing. Have we? Okay, we've convinced our very high-level ally to give us a scroll of wish, or we have a ring of wishes, a ring with 3 charges or something. They're going to need that because otherwise they're going to go into this place, and because not everyone's going to have told the truth, they might not have even gone to a Zeitgeist kiosk. People are going to start dying. And it does not matter that you're 15th level. If you are going to die in 1d12 plus 12 hours, and you can't cast spells, and you're at -4 penalty to all rolls, you are basically a dead man walking at that point. And unless you have these backups, this magical preparation, you're going to die. So it really does test that high level power. Do you notice, though, that on the whole, much like with the God Beetle as well, these are not grinning devil faces. They are not one step, one and done kill traps. They tend to be multi-step with ways out, but the ways out are very sapping. I think in this way this is actually superior to grinning devil faces. The grinning devil face is essentially it is a legitimate trap, it's a challenging trap, but it's also a gag trap. What I mean is you're like, do I put my hand in that thing? Oh, okay, that character's dead. Pick up your next sheet or whatever. Whereas here, this is not a funhouse dungeon. This is not simply there to challenge player skill. It is there to challenge player skill, but it's there to be an organic environment and to sort of be something which happens in a normal campaign. And I think that works great. There's a house with 12 mummies that are being turned as spectres. That's horrendous. Again, you might think you're very tough, but if you're losing levels every 6 hours and you are likely to get mummy rot, I don't know what you're going to do. You have a refreshment stand run by devils, barbed devils who can sell you very expensive potions. There is the Demon Prince of Time, Yaguth, who, if you free, will fight you, but if you're victorious against the demon, you cease to age for a period of 50 years, and aging effects and attacks subtract from the reserve before they hit your actual age. I'm not sure if that's a good idea, but if it's a good risk reward, but it is a risk reward. Also is worth 24,000 XP. Font of Amplitude, D19. Tamor Amu, and may her beauty never fade and her kindness never cease. If you drink from it, one time only, you get a D6 table of just good things. You might be forever after immune to fire magic, or death magic, or fire, or to death magic, or to paralyzation and hold. However, there is, of course, a twist. A pastel cobra, an original monster of Anthony's, is hiding underneath and has a 7 in 8 chance of attacking with surprise. Elemental pool. There is a tailor where you can, if you... there is a Baruni's silver needle, which is a particularly powerful magic item. There are 3,000 outfits, all of which are magical and essentially give you +1 magic armor. But they each weigh only £2 and each has a value of 2,000 silver pieces. That is surely one of the most efficient ways of getting money out. But there is also a whole thing which allows you to set your body to being female, male, androgyny are the 3 options. You can keep using it, but it does change you. And it permanently increases charisma. You have Tombs of the Hierodules, the temple of slaves and prostitutes, of which some of the tombs have good stuff in it, some trapped. Again, high risk reward, because one of the traps will drop you into the sea of fire below, almost certainly lethally. Armies of golden ghouls, 30 golden ghouls. A thing where if you go inside it and you're red flagged, it assumes that you are a condemned criminal and you're trapped in there and you have to fight for however many rounds an iron golem, a special iron golem. You can just blunder into meeting Martuum, the demon who's actually technically part of the defense system of the City of Brass. That's in these tombs up here. You've got the royal stables. You can get magical elephants. You can just summon them. They can be created by the engineering of the place. The 300 skeletons, that's also in this area up here. And this is something you shouldn't do. You just shouldn't go and find the lich kind of body of Iblis Occam carrying Enigma, the sinistral salt of Iblis Occam, and black weightless plate mail +6. I mean, maybe you should, because those sound pretty good. But he is a very, very powerful creature who can gate demons, power word spells, has 20 dice fireball, and has a magical sword. So you're going to die. But again, this is the high level thing. Do you want to take that risk? And I think that, again, that's just fun, isn't it? The fact that you discover the story and the different personalities as you go around here is part of the fun, I think, of being the player. The discovery player who isn't just there for the levelling up afterward or for the combat challenge is realising, this is Iblis Occam. This is the guy we've heard about. Soul engines and the ancient observatory, which you can use to zoom in anywhere, including on things like the Palace of Demogorgon, though Demogorgon might not appreciate it. We can then flick over here. Here's the library area. Few locations here. There's a stadium. There's a theatre with this powerful ancient red dragon. At the bottom there is, I'll get to this, but there's this weird magical gigantic sculptural axe. The big thing here, I mean, there are things like the Celestial Hive with lots of little bees in it. Celestial bees in the millions. Celestial honey, quite dangerous. Celestial bee bread, quite good. The Atelier of Celibotti, which basically there is a Celibotti's Portrait of X is a Dorian Gray kind of artifact style magic item. The Silver Transmogrifier here, we'll get back to the library. The Silver Transmogrifier, there's a whole thing where you get zapped inside and people think you're dead. Once you're inside, you can choose essentially to get out or to ascend. You can either step out by stepping on a teleportation thing, or you can go up the stairs, and then you have to choose. Or rather, what happens is you die, and 2 copies are made. A lavender copy, who is visibly artificial, you're an automaton, or a rose copy, who is very beautiful. But the rose copy, who gets extra int, whiz, and charisma, but is allergic to silver. On the other hand, the lavender copy is immune to lots of damage types and things. On the other hand, they can't use potions or magical food, and they can be disenchanted or cancelled by rods of cancellation. You have to choose, that, or either one of them has to choose to die, or they have to fight it out till one is alive and the other is dead. They are identical copies of the player character. This is much like the Universe Flower, this insane stakes thing, and just incredibly fun, and the kind of thing you think, yeah, this should be what is on the abandoned ghost city of the Gringlings, long fallen and haunted by demons, but still with the burning peacock and God Beetle of the Caliph of the Painted Dawn. That's the kind of stakes you should be playing with. Alab, the ancient red dragon, has about a whole column of... I was saying this. He has a whole column of... Or she has a whole column of treasure. Rods of Resurrection. Loots of Heavenly Pine. 400 Orcanthium marks valued total at 800,000 silver pieces. A spellbook with all her own spells. Another spellbook with a variety of, like Evard's Black Tentacles and Ilul's Mirror Image and Sepia Snake Sigil. Also, just in case you wondered, a Prison of Zagig containing a large spider that's actually ... Lolth ? Retriever? DM Fiat. I mean, you don't want to fight Alahab. She is she only has 88 HP, but she has all the advantages of an ancient dragon. As well as the action efficiency of one, and because the Elul's mirror image can end up having, which is a mirror image, which means you can cast and fight extra, 1 per mirror image. You don't want to fight that. You don't want to find that. But if you can clear her out and you can get that, you have nearly 20 million silver in treasure, including possibly having captured Lolth. Again, galaxy-changing stuff. And when when players are 15th level, shouldn't they be dealing with that rather than just working out how they can fight? Yeah, fight Tiamat, that's fun, but just a dungeon where they fight Tiamat, shouldn't it be that level? Risk, reward. The library, again, is a really interesting example of some of the same stuff going on here, where if you're green flagged, I mean, there's a whole complex with different traps and rules and places you can go, places you can work, but all of this stuff has potential dangers, whether actual traps to do with the defense systems, or in the workrooms there's a night hag and her 2 type 4 demons and Hellcat. On the stairs and roof there is a rock who the red dragon allows to live, because the rock, with a rock egg of course, which is worth, the hatchling's value will be 1 million silver pieces if you can keep it warm for 3 weeks. So yeah, risk reward. But the stuff, again, Anthony, just everything, every room pretty much has, and 270 key locations, virtually everything has at least 2 things going on. Often they interact. Often there is either a virtuous or a vicious cycle. Often the risk reward is there in the individual room, as well as the Kunzian depths. That's one thing maybe I didn't mention earlier. Often one thing connects to another. You can deal with the Blissful Haze or with the Bartstone Madness, but you have to go somewhere completely different. There's a key near the end of the dungeon, essentially, right in one of the hardest places to get to, which opens the front gate. Maybe you want to take it for next time here. But yeah, magic, you can find out lore of the multiverse and just find out stuff. You can research generally and randomize a scroll. You can research a specific spell. You can create a new spell, or you can learn a language. You can meet 4 Rakshasas. You can't speak to them because you're all magically silenced, and they don't want to fight you because they know you're dangerous. There's similarly over in this area. There's the Rakshasas who are here don't want to fight you. The giants who are digging through the elephant graveyard, they do want to fight you. But the idea of high level adventuring parties which are not standard. There is a adventuring party you can find the corpses of scattered around mostly in the G areas, who look human. Who are using high-powered alien technology, living biotech. But the ones you actually will meet are not human. Again, the alienness of the environment, the weirdness of things. Temple Hill, we're coming into a close here. This is just for each of these temples is basically a puzzle. The way to describe it is that, in one... here you can go and fight a bunch of devils inside this pentagram, and if you succeed and if you're lawful evil, Asmodeus will answer your questions. Another one, the Star Dragon Temple which is this one, is actually a temple to Tiamat and has a bunch of messed up stuff going on in terms of traps, and you have to be clever and cunning. You also potentially have to survive a Dracolich, and if you kill the Dracolich, Tiamat's going to be mad. But there is, again, just a great amount of blessings you can get. The Orb of the Great Serpent, if you take it, you get 7 extra powers. That kind of thing. This is... And there is a whole gimmick, and this is very much in this way, this is not really something you find as strongly in Gary's works. You find it more in basic modules. But the idea of, this stuff where you can change your body, the stuff where you are turned into 2 copies, one of which is a robot and one of which is really beautiful but allergic to silver, and they have to fight. This stuff isn't super Gary. It is stuff you see in some of the in Pulp Fiction and in some of the schlock cinema of the 60s through to the 80s, but it's something we now see in OSR stuff like Anomalous Subsurface Environment, drawing on those sources. But here, an example here is that there is a weird... how do they describe it? The Forsaken Chrysalis, which, if broken open, changes the entire season of Temple Hill. So it starts in winter, which is less good and does you damage. But if you make it spring, Cure Wounds is more effective. Summer, haste. You are always hasted when you're there. Autumn, you are slowed. Finally, the Palace of the Painted Dawn is all the grey stuff indeed. Technically, the palace is really this section. Now, here is, again, this is the way in which I've already mentioned these skyward perforation cannons that will fire at you if you're not green flagged. Getting up there, there's no stairs up there. You're just going to have to fly and go through an embrasure or something like that. There are brass men everywhere, so brass golems who can only be warded off if you have a lead tablet. They're everywhere. And you've got to survive the Skywood perforations, but once you're up there, it's not quite the end game. I mean, it's not the universe flower, you know. In that sense, you can get to one of the craziest things here with just a small amount of exploring comparatively through the gardens. But yeah, the real big stuff, many of the mysteries, many of the most interesting places you're going to find by going up into the palace and the defences. And there's lots of just connections, like technically you can go from G01 here, this is one of those kind of things, to G55 here. You can see the matching kind of aquamarine discs, which are teleport discs, and that gives you a route down this way as well. So you have a few different, that's one thing, the teleporting discs give you different ways around. That's interesting. But again, the big thing here is not I guess, as I say, it's not really, it's the really high level stuff, the stuff you want to be level 18 to do, but it's the weird variety of things. The Tower of Transference, where you can change your class. If you're a human, you can become multi-classed. The only way you can become multi-classed is a human, basically. And that includes Monk Magic User, because you can become a Gringling multi-class. You can become a Monk Magic User, level to your current level, and leveling upwards from there. You can find dismantled brass men and lead tablets in another one. You can find like Gringling weaponry. There is one which, it has 3 spectres in it, but if you search you can find a copper toe ring set with a ruby of exceptional luster worth 3,000 silver pieces. That's not really worth it. But then of course it's okay. Not every single room or place is going to be as valuable. But one thing Tony doesn't do, again, and I think it's fun to do this sometimes, but there's virtually nowhere which is just a screw you room. Virtually everything has something. There are maybe 1 or 2 examples. Certainly the False Treasury itself is a screw you room, but it's where you can find, if you find the right door, the Nightingale of Alyssa Amuyan. You start to go through the various towers. These ones are interesting. So G07 is the fire, the trapped tower, that is, which is just bad, to be fair. That's kind of a screw you room. Yeah, I can't see anything good about that one. But G09, this one, that's the Fire God's Suite, which contains, for instance, an alabaster succubus fountain / imp, which uses flaming Dam Mamara. A box of enchanted shisha, which you can use to summon a smoke elemental. 3 glowing, steaming jewels of Lamsani floating in a crystal bowl of burning Dam Mamara. A rose gold dagger, which all damage is healed the next round, even if it means they come back to life. A great taking prisoner weapon. It's essentially non-lethal damage, but without the downsides of having to attempt non-lethal damage. Murder boxes, which are execution places. The Devil's Eyrie, the Styx Devil. This is over here, the Styx Devil who protects the entry, both on this bridge and on this bridge here, into the noble area. The Princess Suite. This is an important one, so we're going to go and find that one here, G13. I think G14 is the Prince Suite, where the children of the Sultan were. You can find the prince's body hidden in a niche down here with his incredible JRPG-esque magic spear. But the princesses, the real thing here, and there's all kinds of crazy stuff. Bottle of wine from Arcadia valued at 25,000 SP. But Tamar Amuyan is still alive, is the big thing here. And she can be woken up. If Gringling is understood, the panels can be used to wake her up. And she'll be inconsolable, but she will become rational and calculating. And she's incredibly powerful herself. She's a 13th level monk, 14th level magic user. She only has 33 HP, fittingly for a monk magic user. But she is incredibly dangerous. But also, you just found the last Gringling alive in the city and the heir to the Gringling throne. What if you can make friends with her? She also has a spell book, which she wants to go and retrieve. What if you go and retrieve it with her? What possible alliance could you build there? The Prince Suite, which has a glass gnome. This is just a fun thing. It's a 2-foot tall gnome automaton with a glass belly full of blue glowing liquid, who kills all normal insects that come within 5 foot of the person who activated it, and has 12 doses of Potion of Healing, which will inject into its master if they are injured. The Zezbeth's Tower, which is back into kind of this, you're starting to get into the central area. That is the Chief Mage. Again, lots of dangerous stuff, but just including a Lich. I'd say the Lich room there, you don't actually really want to go and find. I think, in fact, Zezbeth is over here. There. Yes, that one. Yeah. You don't really want to find Zezbeth the Lich, though he's got some cool magic and is worth 21,000 XP. You're just talking about a very, very dangerous 20 HD Lich with 9th level spells, including Power Word Kill. But again, always the risk reward. If you can get to the other rooms and then decide you're not going to go to the last room in case you find something bad, which my players definitely did. They're like, I feel like we pushed our luck enough here. We should leave. Something bad is probably here. Then let's go, finally. I mean, there's so many rooms you could go through. 270 of these rooms. So many fun things. The actual lower palace complex here is really interesting in terms of the way in which guard mechanisms interact, the way in which you come across the broken machinery of the civil state. You know, the broken servant hologram, the sort of illusion of the head of the harem. You find the dead adventurers, the human adventurers with their biotech as well, scattered around here chiefly. And I think, yeah, it's both a living environment and feels, in that sense, naturalistic, but also endlessly weird and dangerous. 6 shadow demons. I mean, that is... Yes, they're only HD 7+3, but shadow demons, do you really want to find 6 of them, even if you're 15th level? The further you get into these places and the higher value areas, he really does manage to match that with increased danger. There are magical toilets. There are just some great items. So he does great names. I didn't say this when I said about the writing, but the Flowing Stardust Bow, the Sinistral Salt of Iblis Occam, his sword, that's a great name. Caliph of the Painted Dawn is in itself a great name. So many brass men. Matuam will come and get you, though, if you come to the Palace Armory. And this is probably a worthwhile one to pick up. Because here, this is the kind of thing where it's not going to make it livable for you, is it? To just get rid of Matuam. But it will make most things in the City of Brass less dangerous. And it will allow, perhaps, especially if you get Tamara Muan up and around, if you can deactivate using an S3 style chart, you go on table A, table B, etc. An S3, or I think Anonymous Subsurface has similar things. You could get your way through to switching off the defense systems. I mean, the Skyward Perforations might not attack you. That's up to the DM, basically. But the big thing is that Matuam is knocked out. Well, in fact, I think the point is you can turn off the Skyward Perforations by will if you can read Gringling, but you realise there's something amiss, and this is what the Gruul managed, is perverting the avatar of the city, who manifests as the demon Matuam. Of course, Matuam comes to stop you. This room, by the way, is crazy anyway. There's 10 fully charged energy bows. There are 10 spears plus 5. There are 5 Gringling battle shields, which basically are full-on energy shields. 20 javelins of piercing. But yeah, there's a whole thing there where you can... I mean, isn't that an interesting prospect? That not just can you destroy the Prime Material Plane, but you could also get the heir to the throne of the City of Brass and the Gringling Empire. You could wake her up, become friends with her. You could free a married and become friends with them. And you can deactivate the curse on the city, essentially. And what could happen then? Could you become... You know, do you get into an entire different level of planar adventure as you become allies with the Renaissance Gringling Queen? But yeah, finally, I mean, here, yes, you can come this way. There are a couple of gigantic iron golems. But here, this suite, 47 to 49, kind of 46 as well. This is Iblis Occam's rooms. They're interesting. There are 7 harem girls who you can just be friendly to. They will flatter you and be nice to you. They will ask you not to steal anything, and that's very reasonable. They're being nice to you. They're not being horrible. But if you do steal stuff, they become Peningallans, and you're going to have to fight 7 Peningallans, albeit only HD4. But as we've said, when you look at the power suites of some of these monsters, especially if you've got here and you're a tired, de-leveled, resource-low party, are you going to survive that? Well, if you do... There is, as you'd expect, lots of things. Necklace of missiles, 2 Ioun stones. There is, I think it's the Lich possibly, who has 7 Ioun stones if you can get them. Two potions of planar adjustment, which read a particular way are a way to make you immune to the Blissful Haze because they make you a native to the plane. Arguably that, I mean, maybe that doesn't make you a native to the City of Brass, but I think I'd allow it. I think I'd see that as a way that if you're going to spend the potion, you become immune to the to that. The Key of Dawn, most particularly, which allows you to open the gates. There are, just at the very top, the final rooms are interesting and worth looking at because he does this a few times, but there are things like a guest book in the guest suite, bound in olive-toned crocodile skin, like skin near the bed, contains esoteric names and numerous alien languages, with dates that have no point of reference. If researched, these names and dates may lead to further adventures. Or, again, the gazebo and the stars. Just that you can see silver fizzles in the firmament as you look out at the end here, and you look at Arsatar, I guess, at Ibris Ockham and Alyssa Muan. And there are a couple other places. The adventure's not in the place. Yep. Oh, and the guest suite, the other guest suite here, 53. If the PCs loiter, occasional cool breezes will be felt and disembodied far-off musical laughter will be heard. Their source and meaning are beyond the scope of the module. This is opening up more planar adventures, more things that you can do and that you can create from here. And there are other things like the fact that the princesses and the prince, their suites, have these Celtic-themed art pieces of art which make you think, I mean, is that where the Gringlings are originally from, a Celtic-style world? Just quickly, let's just very quickly look at the appendices. And then we'll close. So, you have encounter tables, which are, I think, 12 hourly or something. And let me check. This is, again, one of those things where a tiny bit more cross-referencing would make it easier. I know that they are half hourly. Well, of course, they weren't going to be 12 hourly. Half hourly. So not ternally, but half hourly. And you're always getting something, albeit it might not be anything too dangerous. And, of course, it's not automatically the case that everything you might meet is bad, albeit here, Ice Elementals, Mahatum, the Eater of Souls, Alab, the Red Dragon, those are all bad. Illusions, corpses, albeit the corpses, you might get loot. The flora, I think there's also Temple Hill Winter, and is there anything else? City Encounter? But yeah, the flora tables, yes, there is a stupid not knowing how I've just set up. There is the first flora table, there is the encounter table, so yeah. Other stuff you might meet, Vulot dragons, which are a unique monster, Red Belly Asp, unique monster, dragon horses, pastel cobras, unique monster, golden joe, unique monster, unique to this. The flora tables I've already mentioned briefly. There are then quick descriptions of the Gringlings and the Gruul, and then the Bestiary Surreal. This is worth a very quick mention just because when someone provides you with that many pages of new monsters, including several unique monsters, which you can adapt, I mean, if you're never going to run it, this is worth it. For high-level crazy stuff, there are, how many pages? There are 17 pages of unique monsters to hear. Yagath, the Demon Prince of Time, Special Iron Golem called Zezbeth's Executioner, Creepy Sightless Deer, Samin Dahab, the God Beetle, Multahab, the Flaming Unicorn, the Pastel Cobra, whose venom is kind of drives you insane, the Red Belly Asp, which just has incredibly lethal venom. Not save or die though. Immediate incapacitation followed by painful death 1d6 turns later. You might think, but isn't save or die worse? Well, it's less interesting than forcing people to decide whether or not to use poison. The Rose Pudding, the Luminous Jelly, Martuum, the Eater of Souls, who's a demonic lesser power. The Hyula Offspring. They're not actually evil. There is a thing where if you touch something, like a glob of something starts forming and it turns into a tiny person like you, who you can just have as like a... well, they are linked to you. If they die, you get system shock. Check at -30%. But they become like you and they can help you. And they, if they are good, they will generally try to support and help you. If you're evil, they might try to kill you. So that's not even a bad thing. That's a potentially good thing if you are able to use it properly. Anchor the Burning Peacock of Shah Jahan and the Arthenan Sphinx. So many unique things which are just really... the Ageless Child, bit like AI, the film, slightly creepy children who are meant to, child automata who are meant to comfort you. Lots of unique things, and I think the theme is, certainly wondrous, slightly dreamlike, and certainly, thematically, imagistically Arabian Nights-esque. You could definitely combine some of this with Al-Qadim, Zakara stuff from Forgotten Realms. But I think just as the value for high level and weird stuff, it's great. Similarly, there is a long magic item section, including proxy bodies, which is an automaton you can control and go around like. There is Hextafriti hearts. There are versions of the Jacinth of Inestimable Beauty and Alyssa Amoyan's Bejeweled Nightingale, which is itself, one, it's incredibly powerful, but two, once you've bonded with it, it will occasionally send you insane and you might want to kill yourself, you might just be miserable. There's Enigma, the Sinistral Sword of Ibis-Ockham, again incredibly powerful. It's not an intelligent sword, it's neutrally aligned artifact, but it doesn't have an ego or anything as far as I can tell. So it's good, but you're always thirsty and you don't want to give it up. And if you're you lose a point of dex, and if you're not neutral, you take a 10% HP reduction. Just lots of unique things. The Chelobotti's Portrait of X, which is a Dorian Gray-like thing where failed saves and a couple other things get stored on the portrait, but if the eventually the portrait will overload and screw you over, and you're going to have to suffer all those effects eventually. I think this is something where you could say there are two sides to the product in itself. The appendices are just a crazy thing about like those unique flora, unique monsters, unique weapons and artifacts, and then there is this enormous high-level adventure. One of the biggest high-level adventures, one of the most interesting just for the thematic stuff, beautifully written. And I think the thing is, of course, that part of what makes it like that is that Anthony's made a 60-page book of unique stuff to go in it, as well as the locations themselves. I don't think it's that hard to run, comparatively. I think, as with anything like this, you're going to have to prep, you're going to have to read it. I think basically, he says you don't need to read it all the way through necessarily to begin with. It's going to make sense to read it all the way through because there are so many Kuntzian depths of items connecting to different locations. There are so many interesting puzzles and things where you might want to seed ideas and information in the campaign beforehand as well. But once you're actually running it, it's easy to look through, it's easy to pick up information on. Very occasionally you might run into a bit of unclear prose, but on the whole, traps and rules are there. It lets your players do the stuff they want to do. It doesn't make them weak so as to make it challenging. It makes it challenging so as to make them weak. Like, they've just got to spend themselves on this enormous treasure trove, and then if they manage it, if they survive, then they will come away with a fortune beyond their wildest dreams. Yes, it'll be 5 years later. They may have destroyed the prime material plane, but it's not going to be a journey they forget. And I think that's the thing, compared to Tomb of Horrors, yes, it's challenging. It's clever. Return to the Tomb of Horrors maybe has as epic a scope as this. Something like, yes, the end game stuff in Shrine of the Kuato and Vault of the Drow is satisfying. Night Below has some really interesting systems to do with the Siege of Great Shabbaoth, but I don't think anything has as much in terms of dialing up the risk and dialing up the reward and allowing players to be creative and use as much of their ability as they can, of their player ability, of what they've earned over the course of the campaign. So that's why, to me, and it's a gorgeous book, and it's fun to read, and it's incredibly evocative, so you can steal stuff as well quite joyfully. So that's why I think this is probably the best high-level module for AD&D. What do you think the best high-level modules are? What do you hate as well? What modules do you hate? Tell me in the comments. Till next time.